Below-grade pools require planning before installation begins. Local building codes may require obtaining permits. A complete overview of the completed pool must be laid out, including the type of decking to be used, as well as considerations such as drainage, electric, filtration, lighting, chlorinators, etc. Below-ground pool installation may require professional assistance to prepare the site and to install your pool. Because soil conditions vary throughout the country and yard to yard, please consult a soils expert during the pre-planning process. Soil draining and water table issues will cause serious problems with a below-grade pool. Also check local codes for proper excavation techniques and safety requirements. Check with your retailer for options. Every below-grade pool installation begins with the site selection. Where the pool will be installed must be carefully considered. The pool should be installed where water can drain away from the site to help avoid runoff toward the deck and pool. When selecting a site, you should consider areas that have the following qualities: firm soil, do not backfill to level; dry, not swampy. Once the area is dug, the soil must be dry. No slope. Proper supervision. Position the pool where there is a clear line of sight to the pool. Level site. The site should be as level as possible, but if you need to level the site, do not overdig. You cannot add soil back. You must always take soil away to keep a firm base for your pool. Also, when choosing a site, avoid the following. Stay away from eaves of any buildings, trees, and overhead power lines. It is very important to avoid underground pipes, cables, sprinklers, wells, septic systems, and utility lines. Be sure to check with your local building department before doing any digging. Even the most experienced installer must make a point of becoming familiar with the set of instructions that come with the pool before beginning installation. To familiarize yourself with the parts needed and to verify that all parts are accounted for, you will need to check them against the enclosed parts list. Once you have familiarized yourself with all of the parts and have double-checked that you have received all of the parts required to assemble the pool, you are ready to lay out the pool at your selected location and prep the ground for excavating. For pool layout, you will need the following tools: a tape measure, 6 stakes, household baking flour for marking the ground, and a ball of string. After choosing the location, lay out the pool dimensions per the above-ground assembly guide. Please reference pool layout dimensions from your assembly guide. When staking out the pool, be sure to allow 18 inches around the entire perimeter of the layout. This will allow a working area that will later be filled with slurry mix between the pool wall and the ground. Note, overdigging will be costly due to the amount of slurry needed to fill this area. Once you have double-checked your measurements and are satisfied with the layout, use flour to mark the perimeter that is to be excavated. This will be a guideline for the excavator. Before beginning excavation, remember that each step must be followed carefully, because a below-grade pool installation is not as forgiving as an above-ground installation. For excavation, you will need the following tools: excavator, 2 square shovels, 2 garden rakes, a transit, and a ball of string. It is important at this point to establish your finished height. Set your transit and establish your finished height. Then you can add the pool depth to your finished height, and you will know how deep to dig. As the excavator begins the digging, be sure that he does not dig outside of the marked area. Use a level on the sides to make sure that the digging is straight down and does not drift. The sides of the excavated area must be straight down. When the desired depth has been excavated, the pool outline must be staked again, but in much greater detail. Reference pool layout dimensions from your assembly guide. Constant measuring during the excavation process guarantees the accuracy of the proper pool depth. When fine-tuning the excavated area, the square shovels will be used until the area is ready for the pool installation. When the excavation is about 2 inches of the desired depth, check the general outline and start scraping down to the desired level and constantly checking spots with the transit, marking the areas that are at the desired level. Once the bottom is level, it is time to refer to the assembly guide section, Pool Layout Dimensions. Also remember to do the clearance area per the assembly guide, or you will either have too much space or too little space. Remember, when leveling your site, never add earth to level. Always take it away. For pool assembly, you will need the following tools: a 7/16" wrench, a 9/16" wrench, a cordless drill with 5/16" magnetic hex head driver, a round shovel, 2 square shovels, transit, duct tape, WD-40, and a 2-foot level. First, make sub-assemblies of the side vertical structures. Please refer to Figure A, Exploded Side Section from your assembly guide. For sub-assemblies of the side vertical structure, you will need the following parts: skid plate, top ground support, bottom ground support, side vertical support, 4 1/4 20" bolts and nuts, 4 3/8 16" bolts, 6 for the impressions model, and 2 side vertical bottom cap, only for the impressions model. To begin the assembly of the exploded side section, keep in mind that the orientation of the skid plate is vital to the strength of the structure. Attach the skid plates to the bottom ground support using 4 1/4 20 by 1/2" long bolts and 1/4 20 hex nuts. Please refer to Figure A, Number 1, Exploded Side Section in your assembly guide. Then, position the top ground support. Please refer to Figure A, Number 2, Exploded Side Section in your assembly guide. Now slide the vertical into the end of the ground support subassembly until 4 holes align in the 3 parts. Fasten together with 4 3/8 16 by 3.5" long hex bolts and 3/8 16 hex nuts. Please refer to Figure A, Numbers 3 and 4, Exploded Side Section in your assembly guide. When making the assembly, it may be necessary to use pliers and a hammer to tap the bolts through. Be sure when doing this you do not damage the bolt threads. Once you have pre-assembled the vertical side supports, it's time to move on to the side support excavation for the placement of the concrete blocks. Refer to Stakes and String Line step in the assembly guide for the placement of the side support excavations. Once the location of the side support excavations is established, refer to Side Support Excavations for the hole sizes. First, you dig an 8" wide by 16" long by 11.5" deep block hole, and a long trench for the ground supports, measuring 4 inches wide by 36 3/4 inches by 3.5 inches deep from the block hole. Place a concrete block in the hole and check to be sure the top of the block is 3.5 inches below the leveled pool floor. Then, make sure the side surface of the block is 11 3/4 inches from the string line. Also check to be sure the block is level. Please refer to Side Support Excavations and Install Concrete Blocks in the assembly guide. Now, check the level of the 36 3/4 inch trench. It should be level with the top of the block. Then place the side vertical subassembly in the trench with the side vertical end on the block, the ground supports in the trench, and the skid plates up against the block. Please reference Side Support Excavations and Install Concrete Blocks. At this point, the pool floor level should be 2 inches above the ground support channel. This area around the side vertical assemblies will need to be dug out to be level with the ground support channels. Be sure the vertical assemblies are even with the string line layout for the side of the pool. Measure 1 inch from the verticals and lay down a string line. Then measure 24 inches out towards the center of the pool. This area should be dug out to the side stakes. This is 24.5 inches from the center of the outer ground channels. The trench should be 2 inches deep from the pool floor and level with the ground channels. Please reference Dig Out for pressure pads. With the trench dug and double checking to make sure the trench is level, the next step is to install the pressure pads. Each vertical gets 2 pressure pads, one with a notch at the center and one without. As you will see, there are pressure pads with a double notch out and pressure pads without. Keep in mind that the notched pressure pad always goes closest to the vertical assembly. Fasten the pressure pads to the ground channel with 4 12 by 3/4 inch long screws through the 4 holes in the center of the pressure pad. Once this is completed for each of the pressure pads, connect the ends of the pressure pad to each other with 4 10 by 3/8 inch long screws. The side rails are stamped with an S, and these are placed along the straight sides of the pool. The circular end rails are stamped with the pool width, such as 18 feet, and these will be placed along the circular ends of the pool. Make sure to separate these rails before you begin installation. Some pools will have transition rails to transition from the circular ends to the straight sides. If you are going to use patio blocks, they must be level with the pool floor. Please reference Install Bottom Rails. The tools needed for the bottom rail installation include a cordless drill, laser level, measuring rod, and a square shovel. The bottom rail installation starts at the side verticals. Attach the bottom rail locator to the side vertical with two 10 by 1/2 inch long sheet metal screws. While you are attaching the locators, be sure you install the bottom rails stamped with S. They fit tightly between the side verticals and must be installed at this time. Be sure the bottom rail locator is mounted with the hook ends up and fastened to the side verticals using the top set of holes at the bottom of the side vertical. Please reference Install Bottom Locator and Install Bottom Rails. Continue the bottom rail installation by starting at the side vertical supports. Place the first circular end of a transition bottom rail into the bottom rail locator and the opposite end in the vertical end cap. Push the bottom rail to the stop of the plate. Install the next bottom rail into the plate in the same manner. Continue this process until you have installed all of the bottom rails. Once all of the bottom rails are in place, check the layout dimensions. At this point, you may need to adjust some of the plates and bottom rails. You may want to stake spots to hold the bottom rails in place. You need to secure the concrete blocks that were installed earlier. Apply a quick drying concrete around and in these concrete blocks. Now it is time to start the wall assembly. For the wall assembly, you will need duct tape and WD-40. Determine the wall starting point from the preliminary planning section in the assembly guide. Remember that the wall is a coil of metal. Consider using a leather-type glove when handling the wall. When starting the wall, align the starting edge of the wall on the center of the vertical end cap where the starting point has been determined. As the wall is uncoiled, secure the wall from one vertical end cap to another by inserting the bottom edge of the wall into the groove of the bottom rail. As you work your way from section to section, secure the wall by placing stabilizer rails on the top edge of the pool wall. Use duct tape to secure the stabilizer rails. Note that the stabilizer rails only telescope on the ends of the pool. When the wall ends meet, make sure the joint will be at the center of the vertical end cap. If the wall joint either overlaps or is short, you can adjust the circular end bottom rails in or out until the wall ends meet properly. Be sure to adjust all bottom rails equally, or you will not have an equal distance between each top rail. Please reference Install Wall Joint. To complete the wall assembly, insert the wall back into the bottom rail and install the remaining stabilizer rails. Up next, we'll cover installing the verticals. This step covers installing the end vertical supports. For this step, you will need a cordless drill. There are different configurations of the end verticals. Some verticals are a 3-piece unit that must be assembled. Others are 1-piece verticals that are ready to install. The 3-piece assembly consists of 2 sides and 1 center strip. In order to assemble, slide the center strip's end beads into the matching opening on the side pieces. Please reference Figure B, Install Verticals. Now attach the end vertical supports to the bottom end caps by using 10 by 3/8 inch long sheet metal screws. The pool you are assembling will determine the amount of screws you will use. Please refer to the assembly guide to locate this information about your pool. It is now time to add the vertical end caps to the verticals using 10 by 3/8 inch long sheet metal screws. The side vertical end caps are not the same as the circular end top vertical end caps, but they are attached in the same manner. A helpful hint at this point is to review the assembly guide to double-check which set of holes you will use for installing the top rails. To assist you, use a marker to mark which sets of holes to use. Refer to assembly guide, Install Top Rails. Clarify which top rails go on the sides of the pool. This portion of the installation also requires a cordless drill. Secure each top rail to the holes you previously marked in black by matching them with the hole labels on the top rail. Assemble using 2 10 by 1/2 inch sheet metal screws on each end of the top rail. It's time to attach the top connectors. Some top connectors are 1 piece that snap on, while others are 2-piece connectors that are screwed in place. This pool has 2 pieces top connectors and is screwed in place. The bottom portion is screwed to the verticals with a 10 by 3/8 inch sheet metal screw. Then hook the back portion of the top connector on the inside of the top rails and pull it towards the outside of the pool. By pulling up on the bottom connector and pulling forward and down on the top connector, the holes in the top and bottom should align. The small holes will appear behind the large holes. then fasten together with two 10 by 3/8 inch long sheet metal screws. Finally, snap the plastic trim piece into the two large holes. Cove installation varies depending on the manufacturer. You may choose to form a cove out of sifted earth. The next step is to plumb in your skimmer and piping to your filter. Also at this time, consider the groundwater and water table issues you may have in the area you are working. Groundwater can be a serious problem for your pool if not allowed to drain properly. There are a number of ways to do this. We suggest installing a drainage pipe around the outside of the pool at the base. Run the pipe to an area away from the pool that will allow any groundwater pressure to be released away from the pool. To begin drain installation, create a base of about 2 inches of gravel. Then set into the gravel the drainage pipe. The pipe should be covered with a paper or cloth designed to allow water through, but keep the soil from clogging the pipe. After setting the pipe and drainage paper into the gravel, then cover the pipe with gravel. At this point, it's time to start to mix the slurry.
For the slurry composition, use 1.5 95-pound bags of Portland to 1 ton of sand, or 142.5 pounds of cement to 2,000 pounds of sand. This mix is rated at 365 psi.
Also, the water mix or ratio should be a dry mix. We suggest using a 3-inch slump. Concrete slump is the amount of water used to give the desired consistency. A slump cone is available to test the slump. When using a 3-inch slump, the mix will be about as dry as you can make it without it setting too quickly. We suggest 2 ways to mix the slurry. The first way is to mix the sand and gravel dry. Then shovel this dry mixture into the area around the pool. Next, add water into the mix, allowing the water to penetrate deep into the mix. Wet the mixture until it reaches the proper slump consistency. Finally, tap down to compress the mixture and continue this process until you have reached the finished level. The second method is to mix the sand, gravel, and water before shoveling it into the area around the pool. Never pour the slurry mix directly from the truck into the backfill area. Shovel the mix from a wheelbarrow or dump the mix onto a flat wood surface and then shovel into the pool backfill area. Controlling the composition and application of the slurry mix is key. Once the slurry is compressed and filled to the proper level, smooth out the slurry mix, sloping away from the pool. When backfilling around the skimmer, if you are hard plumbed into the skimmer, you may choose to backfill completely around this area. Another option is to form the backfill around the skimmer to allow access to the piping. Before anyone goes into the pool, it is very important to apply all the safety labels. These labels are a critical step in the installation. Years of research and costly lessons have dictated the need for these safety labels. If they are not installed properly, you are endangering the customer. Apply these labels.